Cool, thanks. So John, some of you know a bit about John, but so I've known John for a year or a bit more probably. John's a pretty interesting guy. He's sort of got his technical training in marketing, but he does a few different things. And as we're just hearing about, he's got a connection to lots of different parts in the world, but he's part of his family's from a place called Sambora in the Solomon Islands, and he's got this burgeoning agribusiness running, which I was so impressed with when I first heard about. So I've asked John to kind of talk about a bit about his business, about his vision. He's got a couple of battle stories, I think, to share with us, but because he's such a good marketing guy, he's made this cool video that I'm going to share, which is a kind of an overview of his business, Sambora Finest.
So it's quite like a big event when we have the buying day, because it attracts like every type of person, from young, old, male and female, to come and earn some money from the cocoa beans which they harvested from the plantations. So that's kind of what I was capturing in that video, just what happens during buying day. Yeah, so that's the narration.
I'm just going to try it one more time. Can you hear the sound now?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah?
No. I don't think you're sharing anymore.
Oh, I'm not sharing?
No. Can't hear it, but you are sharing.
Okay.
So a lot of people, there are pretty much two ways where they bring the beans. They either carry it or they paddle it, or we pick it up with wheelbarrows. We don't have any vehicles, so everything is done manually. You either carry, you paddle, or we come and pick it up with a wheelbarrow, depending on where you live. So some of the communities, they're quite far along the coast, so they have to paddle in the dugout canoes to bring the cocoa beans. So this is one that we did last year, and we're gonna go down again probably in the next 2 months to go do another big buy. And we kind of do that throughout the year, depending on the season of the cocoa. But we're the only one who's doing this in the community, and we started this up in 2001, just before COVID. So it was really kind of helpful during that time, because it allowed our people to earn sustainable income from the resources that we had in the village.
Yeah, it's cool. I was just trying to get a couple of stills there.
Yeah, so you can always watch it later. And
so I'll stitch in the original to the sort of final video, but I'll send the link around. It's it's worth watching. The sound is mostly just music actually, but it does give it a bit more mood. Cool. So I've got a few questions for you, John. So you kind of talked a bit about Sambora Finest, and where you've kind of started and come from. What about the vision? You know, where do you hope to be in 5 years? You know, how far do you hope to take it?
Yeah, for Sambora Finest, like I said, we started it in 2001, and pretty much what we exist, or what our vision is. I do have a bit of a presentation here, so it might kind of answer that question. If you guys are okay, I'd like to take you through that. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, let me. Still can see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one of my uncles paddling to the buying point with his kind of with what he's going to sell to us, and it's all in all these buckets to protect it from the seawater. So yeah, pretty much Sambora Finest was started by myself and my partner. And the whole reason why we started it was because there was pretty much no cash flow in our community in Sambora. And we identified that, you know, we have so much cocoa there, it's quite a highly valuable commodity, but we were not making money from it. So people are struggling to meet their basic needs, whether it be school fees or food, things like that. So with whatever resources we had, we decided to start Sambora Finest. And like I mentioned, we're an agribusiness, but pretty much why we exist is we just want to create a sustainable source of income for our people. We're the only buyer in Sambora. We're the only one who has roots in the community. So what we're offering is really quite important. We're offering a way to, you know, earn a money from the natural resources we have. Pretty much the role that we play is to provide access to the market in order to gain revenue from our agricultural resources. So we pretty much exist to secure markets and economically empower our community. So the vision that we have long term, to answer your question, Ian, is we would like to kind of directly export to the niche market. Currently, what we're doing is we're selling to exporters in Honiara because you really need volume in order to attract or buys from overseas. So we are kind of in progress to lock in a niche market. We've got some support locked in this year with various partners. So we reckon we're going to achieve it by the 4-year mark. And for those of you who don't know where we are, this is the Solomon Islands here, just below PNG. We're located on an island called Vela La Vela. This is the western province of Solomon Islands, and Vela La Vela is right here. It's pretty much the last island in the western province before you go into PNG through Bougainville. This is kind of a close-up snapshot of where our agribusiness is based. Can you see my mouse?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this here is called Vonunu. This is where the ship comes to collect our bags, our cocoa bags, and Sambora runs from this point here to this yellow point here. And our buyer is located here in this white dot, our current one, but we're building another one at the moment. So people from here, they have to paddle all the way here. So it's like a 10-kilometer coastline. And just a few pictures before we go into the questions. This is the cocoa. I hope you've seen one. If you haven't, this is what it looks like. Cocoa plantation. Some of the coastline is really quite elevated, so it's kind of in some parts quite dangerous to climb up and access your plantations. We brand all our bags. Like Ian said, I'm a marketer, so I really want to make sure that our branding for our village is always out there. These are bags when it's full. This is us loading them at the wharf to go into the ship. So this is like a tractor full of cocoa bags, 29 bags. One bag is around 80 to 90 kilos. I'm really quite invested in the community, so I always try my best to communicate as openly as I can with them. Every time I'm in the village, I hold a community presentation, and for me, why I do that is I want their buy-in in terms of the vision or the direction that we're going in. So every year I go down and I tell them, this year, this is what we're going to focus on, and this is what we're going to achieve. And I do that 2 or 3 times a year. This is the view from my place in Sambora. So I'm also going into sun drying, which is what the niche market kind of demands if you want to sell to them. Niche market are places like New Zealand or Australia, for example, small boutique chocolate makers. They want a good story with their cocoa. They want something that's maybe rare. So this is what I'm offering them, this view with my sun-dried cocoa beans. Yeah, if you have any questions while I'm doing this, that's also fine. Otherwise, that's just like a really short presentation where I thought would give you guys a good picture about what we're doing. These are contact details, and if you see behind here, this is the coastal road that runs throughout the village, and it's just full of plantations, cocoa and coconut. So what we're trying to do is to kind of harness this potential in order to provide income for our people. Yeah, I think that's pretty much my presentation. I know we got some questions, which I'm happy to answer.
Cool. Thanks, John. Are you able to oh yeah. Your screen, your camera is looking a bit crazy.
This is a very high-tech piece of technology.
We got you in double. That's good enough. Actually, what I didn't I forgot to say was a plug actually for us. So we did a water project at Sambora and also Nairobi and one other small village nearby. And I bet you there's a little bit of that water's been used to help wash those beans, or at least wash some hands.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
Yeah. I'll just wait. There we go. Oh, no.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
Got it. So not an easy journey to start something like this, right? So
No.
You talked a little bit about the vision behind it. It's really not about the agribusiness at all, right? You've got this kind of much bigger vision in terms of investing back into your community. And you talked a bit about the cash flow, but why that idea? I mean, I know you said there was lots of cocoa or cacao plants, but there would have been other things you considered, right? There are other small agribusiness opportunities. Why cocoa? Why then?
I think, for me, everybody loves chocolate, yeah, and I think the demand for chocolate is only going to increase. So when I thought long term, I really felt that if we went into cocoa, it could be something that has a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of markets we can tap into. A lot of people because since I'm from New Zealand, I have I know people who are getting into boutique chocolate making. So when I kind of pieced 2 and 2 together, I felt that there's such a huge opportunity for us to tap into that market. If only I can engage my people and kind of activate that interest in them as well. So that's why I chose cocoa. There's a lot of potential in it. And actually, we are quite well placed strategically. I mean, we're close to New Zealand, we're close to Australia. It should be easy for us to export these beans. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I went into that, as opposed to coconut, which, it's quite more labor intensive. If you want to make a product that you can export, there's a lot of work. You probably need some machinery to do it, to get the oils out of the coconut. Whereas with the cocoa, I can just harvest it and dry it in the sun. It's a lot easier for my community to kind of tap into that market. So that's why I chose cocoa.
Yeah. Simple start. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. The more simple and maybe the better, to be honest.
Yeah. That's one thing we've definitely learned with our technical water stuff. Okay, so pretty remote in a relative sense, I suppose. What are some of the big challenges of working out of Sambora in particular?
Yeah, I mean, if you're working in a remote place like that, of course, logistics is always going to be a challenge. It's not an easy place to get to. I mean, you got to catch a plane or a boat to get to the provincial capital, and then you got to catch an outboard motor, just like you would to go to Ranonga. It's quite it's not an easy place to get to unless you have a good reason to go there. So that's one challenge in itself. And of course, supporting infrastructure. When you're working in a rural place, the reach of the government is quite minimal in terms of there's no good roads or there's no lot of good wharves. So they kind of don't encourage you to want to go into an agribusiness, which actually creates a problem because then you have a lot of urbanization. People are wanting to go into the city, moving into the city to look for jobs, but there are actually no jobs there. So it doesn't make sense. We come from like a place which is so resource rich, but since we can't access any markets or earn money from it, people would rather go live in Honiara or any capital in any country. But it creates a big problem. That's, I think, one of the challenges. And people is a big challenge. When you're working with rural communities, you really have to put a lot of effort in terms of communicating what you're doing, because small misunderstandings can really build up. You might be trying to do the right thing, but since you never communicated it to them, it might be a hindrance as well. So I think that's one of the challenges I see working in a remote community.
Logan, remember, he and I got hauled into a chief's community hall, this exact same situation, right? Like we were there with the best of intentions, but you just, if communication expectations aren't properly set and met, it can sometimes be worse. So, and one thing that's worth just describing for people listening to this is Sambora is not really unique in the Solomon Islands, right? Like, we're listening here from Australia or New Zealand or maybe another heavily urbanized country. The lifestyle in Sambora is actually quite common, right? If I remember correctly, something like 80% of Solomon Islanders live in a rural community. Is that about right?
Yeah, majority of our population are in the rural areas, living in villages, having a lifestyle where they're living off the earth, living off the land. But we're not unique in the sense where, a lot of other places are like us in Solomon's. Remote, beautiful.
Yeah. But they're in, I mean, I guess where I was going with that is that's the opportunity, right? Is if you can kind of get this model to work, it's scalable across, hundreds of thousands of villages.
That's actually that is part of our vision too. When I had my first presentation to the community, I had all the chiefs there and all the farmers and people who were interested. And one thing I said to them was, we need to build a model community. And I think that's definitely part of our vision. We want to create a model community where you can earn a sustainable income from what you have there in the community. You don't always have to look to the big bright lights, and run away from something where you have, which is you're fortunate to have compared to a lot of people. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Okay, so tough journey. There's been some ups and I know there's been some downs. Can you tell us about, when you felt like giving up? How's that kind of come about? How have you kind of pushed through the really low times?
Yeah, I think when we first started Sambora Finest, we identified one key person to work with, and he was kind of like, a bit of a guru when it comes to cocoa. He has a lot of experience in this industry, so he's a relative of mine. So we decided, we would work together with him to kind of be our person on the ground. Sorry, should I answer this question? On the ground.
No, keep going. I'll ask. I'll ask
it. The community. But yeah, when we hit our 2-year mark, this person we're working with, I'm not really 100% sure why it happened, but he started to lose a lot of momentum and kind of damaged by not looking after the beans, because you can't put them in the rain. They're very sensitive. You got to keep them in a cool I'm in a place where it's safe. It's not kind of going to be damaged by rain or all the elements. So I was really upset because around 10 of our bags got damaged in the rain because he left them at the wharf. And after that, he pretty much didn't answer any of my phone calls. It's really easy when you're living in a village. It's really easy to ignore someone.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of my first challenges, was when, you know, the person who I put my trust in to be my man on the ground, he kind of fell through. But I just took it as a learning journey, you know, and because it was an interesting time, because even during that time, we signed a bit of a support agreement with a local agency here in town to give us some support to kind of scale up this business. So it was like something really bad happening, but then this wonderful opportunity happening at the same time. So I know this story is quite contextualized to what we're doing, but I just had to kind of take it on the chin, you know, this big failure where this whole thing could have just fallen on its legs. But I think we're in a better position now. Like, we've learned that we can't do the same thing in the same way with the community. We've got to be more strategic, be more agile, be able to maneuver, be resilient. And I think now we're in the best place that we've been, although we had that really bad experience where we lost our most trusted person. So now I have to be very smart in terms of how we handle money, the information that we give, the responsibilities that we give people to do. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Ian.
Yeah, the second, maybe I'll just ask a follow-up question is, you know, we were talking before this about this kind of sense of betrayal, right? And I think, you know, for me at least, there's lots of times where I just wanted to give up on things, you know, especially that stuff we do in Ranonga, but it's the bigger why that's kind of enabled to push through, right?
Kept us going.
And it's not often even like a big thing like yours was a big betrayal. It was kind of a big event, but sometimes it's just the drudgery of it all that makes you want to give up as well. So
yeah,
I don't know if you'd agree with that, having that deeper why to kind of push through.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm, you know, feeling really down, you know, there's always going to be challenges. When I watch or when I see some of the content that we've created and the impact that we've had in the community, that's what keeps me going. Because I know that at the end of the day, you know, maybe one person failed me, but at the end of the day, you know, we're helping hundreds of people to earn some income, to pay for their school fees, things like that. So that's what keeps me going. I can't give up. Because if I do, who's gonna fill in that gap that I'm leaving behind?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I tell myself. So, okay, we'll keep going. We'll keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. But something, I mean, that's the key thing. I think in my experience, to have something beyond yourself, right? Because it was just for you, it was just for the money. I speak from my own experience. It wouldn't do it, right? It's
I wouldn't do it. If it was for the money, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. You're a talented guy, right? I'm
Not
sure
that
there's
there's
easy ways
no
to make
money
money.
in it, but like, it's not that there's no money in it, but yeah, it's definitely about the impact. It's about the impact. And, you know, I got some figures. In our first year, we supplied 2.7 tons of cocoa. And in our second year, it doubled to 4.7 tons. So in 1 year, I mean, between our first and second year, we were able to double our production. And we helped 214 people, 214 villages, women, men, and young people to earn some money. So when I look at the figures, then I know, I got to keep going, because maybe this year I'll hit 6 tons and next year I'll hit 8 tons. And, you know, that's going into the pocket of rural people.
It's amazing. So how many people?
214 men, women, and youth.
Right.
Because we keep a database. Every time we buy, we keep a database.
Right. So that's school fees paid, uniforms, textbooks, meals.
It helps, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like the only thing, but you know, it's extra money for whatever your needs might be. And I see a question here from Freedom, Ian.
Sure.
I can answer that.
Go for it.
In our island of Vela, or in our region of Sambora, we're the only ones. So that's the thing. We're the only ones who are based there and buying locally in the village. So we have a bit of an advantage, because it will be difficult for others to come and set up shop, although they have done it in the past, but they always it always becomes a problem because they kind of they fall short on money, so they take on credit and then they never come back. So there's kind of been this history of mistrust. So that's part of the reason why the plantations, people are not really utilizing them to their full potential. And in the Solomon Islands, there are lots of other cocoa buyers, but in different provinces and regions. So there are buyers in Honiara, and they just buy from, they're the main exporters, and they just buy from whoever brings the beans to them. But of course, the more volume you produce, they give you a better price. So that's kind of why it's important for us to be the key buyer, because instead of the smallholder going to the exporter with 2 bags, we can go with 20 or 30, and we get a better price for the people on the ground. And there's only 2 chocolate makers in Solomon Islands, and they're buyers as well. So.
Is that Solomon Gold? Is that one of them? Solomon's Gold?
Solomon Gold is based in New Zealand, but there's one called Catlero, and there's another one run by a church group here. So there's some potential in it.
Yeah. And your differentiated product, the sun-dried ones, that you can command a premium price for those through the same distribution channels?
No, this is really interesting. Like if you're exporting to New Zealand and you're giving them the sun-dried, then you'll attract a better price. But for a lot of the buyers in town, the main ones, because it depends on the market they're selling to. Like if you're selling to the bulk market, whether you dry it on a hot air dryer or in the sun, you get the same price. But yeah, you can attract a premium depending on how you dry it.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Market.
What's that, Freedom?
I'm saying depending on how you market, well, how you sell it in the end. Because if you're saying, I think if you're selling it to like a bulk buyer in the islands, buying from anyone, then that differentiation doesn't really matter. You have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've tried all the main buyers, and now we're sticking with the one who buys the highest price. We stick with them for now until we can export ourselves.
So as a quick plug, if someone's listening to this, maybe here in Australia or New Zealand, might be connected with a potential buyer. What's the best thing for them to do? Kind of reach out by email or I don't know, just a little quick plug, I suppose, because you never know who might hear this.
Yeah, the best way is to contact us. It's very it's possible to send samples of our cocoa beans and test reports. Every time we get our beans from the village, we give it to the body here who's responsible to testing the beans. So when you're doing that, you can kind of get a feel for whether this kind of matches your product. But I would say that the cocoa beans in Sambora, they're big. They're big beans. Every time we sell our beans to the exporters here, that's the one comment they always give me. Your beans are very big. So what it means is, you get more value out of buying beans from us. And best way is to contact me. I'll send you a sample, and you can for free, but you got to pay for the shipping.
Yeah.
Then you can you got to pay for the air freight. Then you can make a decision. But like I said, I know a lot of boutique makers are looking for unique places to buy their chocolate, buy their cocoa. And I think Sambora is pretty unique. It's a beautiful place, and I got pictures to prove it.
It's true. Yes, I can attest to that. Yeah, cool. Okay. I actually have one more question. I might throw it open to the group. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat or else and ask them at the end. So what you've done is remarkable, John, I think. I mean, I know, you're an entrepreneur, right? So you always see the gap. You always see, what you haven't done. But like you said before, it's important to recognize those wins. And, from the outside, I would say to you, well done, mate. Like, it's amazing what you're doing. And what you have is actually really interesting advice. You might not think about it, but let's say there's someone listening to this who's thinking about starting a project, maybe it's agribusiness, maybe it's in a rural place, you know, with low income area somewhere in the world, what encouragement or advice would you give to that person who's, you know, just starting from zero, setting out, got an idea, wants to take the next step?
Yeah, I think what we're doing with Sambora Finest, you know, it wouldn't like always apply to a lot of business models that are out there or business ideas, but definitely if someone is thinking about, you know, creating a business, whether it be an agribusiness, but wants to make an impact in a place that really needs it, you know, for me, the two things that always kind of that I reflect on whenever I do feel, when I question myself, why am I doing this? And for me, those two things are, like I mentioned to you earlier, Ian, is like, I think about the best time, the saying, the best time to plant a tree was, you know, 10 years ago. That's one thing that always is stuck in my head, because the reason why is I know that in this community in Sambora, it's not always that someone's going to come along and willing to take a risk to start something there, or has the initiative or even the passion to make something happen on the ground because of all the challenges they'll face. So I think for me is when I'm sitting and I'm reflecting, I don't want to get to a stage where it's like 10 years down the road, and the issues in the community are stronger than they were when I was younger, and I could have done something about it, but I didn't. So that's like one thing that's always in my mind. Like I kind of have a sense of responsibility to make something happen, to create something in the rural economy that over time will compound, and, you know, maybe it will help to reduce some of the issues that we're facing. You know, maybe it means one more kid goes to school, or maybe it means that, you know, this father can actually earn some money for his family and to feed his kids, things like that. Or, you know, it's about maintaining that knowledge, that traditional knowledge where, you know, dad goes with mom to harvest in the plantations with their kids. So for me, that's how I think about it. Like when I think long term, and maybe that's the encouragement I would give, is it's really important to start, because, you know, the second thing is the economy in a rural setting is never going to grow unless someone takes action. It's not like when you're living in an urban area, you know, there's lots of people doing things. There's lots of people who have the willingness to take some risk. There's businesses, shops, service providers. But when you're working in a rural community, you know, people are just looking to how they can create an income for themselves. And if they can't do it in the village, they're going to leave. So for me, I think that's the two key things. It's just important to start, because if you don't, in 10 years' time, the issues that are present in the community are going to be a lot worse. And two, the economy in that rural setting, it's never going to grow unless you're willing to take that risk. And for me, I want to be that spark. You know, I want to be that person that who stood up to do something when no one else didn't. When this community in this island has been forgotten, when no one's building roads there, no one is creating new businesses there. I want to be that person that kind of lifts others up around me, because I know I have the ability to do it. I might not have like the resources, but if I'm like here talking to you guys about what I'm doing in Sambora, then obviously like it's working. For me, that's a sign that, you know, maybe this is working. You know, I'm actually sharing the story of Sambora. I've got 5 or 6 more people here who know about Sambora. Maybe Logan's gonna come visit me next time he's here. So for me, it's about that journey. You know, as long as I start, I know that in the future good things are gonna happen. But if I don't, and I just forget about it, I can be almost certain that, you know, no one can do it as good as me. Not because I have an ego problem, but, you know, it helps to be confident.
Yeah.
And I just got to start, Ian. I think that's the encouragement. But like I said, it's only applicable for this context where you're trying to do something in a place where really needs it.
Oh, I disagree. I think that advice is actually quite worldly, you know, for any project, right? Just start, be the change you want to see. Before I open it up, I just wanted to one more plug for John's business. So we talked a little bit, you know, connection with customers. That would be great, right? But I'm just kind of guessing here that based on your vision, you're probably going to need access to some technical expertise, some capital investment potentially. Do you want to quickly just mention if you know what you might need in, say, 12 months time or 24 months time. If you're looking for investors, what sort of a person you might want to partner with.
One of the ways that I feel could scale the business up is by having access to something that makes the farmers' lives easier. Like when I said at the start of our discussion, it's quite physical. People have to carry things, but one of the things which I'm working towards is to bring buying to the farmer. So like you need a truck, or you need a motorbike, or you need something with a trailer, where you can go to a farm and the farmer, all he has to do is to harvest their beans and they don't have to carry it or paddle it anywhere. If someone doesn't have that challenge, obviously they're going to harvest more beans because it's less effort. They're carrying less bags. They just have to put it on the side of the road and we go and pick it up for them. So that's something we're working towards. So that's the only thing that we haven't managed to get support for. So that's for me the big area that we still need investment in order to kind of scale up our operation, to access more farmers so they can harvest more and utilize the full potential of their plantations. Good. Yeah, so that's the main thing that's on my mind. Currently, okay, we've managed to get a little bit of support. So people are helping us out with building a new dryer. So that's quite helpful, and also tools for farmers. So we're equipping them with more tools that they need to maintain their plantations. We're doing trainings. We're going to send someone down in the next 2 months. When I go down, we're going to go together to do crop management training. So it's about rehabilitating of the cocoa plantations. So we're doing a lot, but the logistics is still the main challenge. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Any other questions from you guys about anything John's talked about, or maybe something he hasn't talked about? No?
Well,
yeah.
Mine is not a question, really. It's just possibly a comment. I mean, I kind of have a bit of familiarity with what you're dealing with, and I think the value in the work that you do. I think one of the things that globalization has not done is connecting small communities to other smaller communities. I would really think that getting markets, which I think there are plenty, like you have to probably work through the logistics of getting a market in a country like Australia, say, that will buy directly from you, because you can produce a very unique product because you're coming from a smaller community and people are using their hands and not machines. But I think dealing with the regulations and whatever that allow you to be able to export would be your biggest challenge, but I think it'll be worth it. That's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true, Freedom. Like if we're able to access a market, we like almost double or triple the amount that we can buy from the farmers. What I mean is,
also triple your price.
Yeah, exactly. Currently, if you're buying in the community, based on the price in the Solomons, you're buying like less than $5 for a kilo. Like, and that's like amazing. So most of the time, the average price will be around like $2 to $3 a kilo. But that's only because the price in Honiara is also low. But as soon as you get a market overseas, they're buying from you at $35 to $40 per kilo. So automatic, like pretty much that has an instant impact on the price you're buying from the rural farmer, because just the margins. Yeah. So
wow. That's a big multiple. What's that? 6-7 times multiple.
Yeah. And to answer Musa's question, he was, how are we planning to attract overseas buyers? How are you working to achieve this? Yeah, few things. One is we're investing in solar drying. So we're preparing to build a new solar dryer. So that'll be our second dryer. One is a hot air dryer, and one is the solar dryer. So the solar dryer is purposely to attract the boutique chocolate makers in Australia and New Zealand. And we've signed this partnership agreement with the agency in town to assist us to do the crop management training that I discussed earlier. We need to assist our farmers to rehabilitate the plantations. And at a local level, we're starting to become more connected with key stakeholders who kind of play a role in terms of market access. We've also, been connecting ourselves with people overseas too. So we have some contacts in New Zealand and Australia who are really interested to buy from us, and they've kind of expressed this already through emails. But we have held back a little bit because we still want to make sure that we have the right process in place. The last thing we want is to, sign a kind of supply agreement with someone, but then at the ground level, we're still working on the basics. So we have a 4-year plan, and our goal is by the 4th year, then we can start to export comfortably, because we've worked on a lot of maybe structural issues. So that's how we're working. We have a plan, and we're just working on it. So now we're on the 3rd year. So by the end of next year, going into the 5th year, I'm positive that we should have someone locked in to buy our beans. Yeah.
One thing I would say, maybe you take this with a grain of salt because I don't know your industry, right? But sometimes you have to say yes to things you don't know how to do yet. Everyone here will agree that I put these guys on some buses sometimes, and it can be quite stressful. But there's no faster way to develop. I mean, no amount of training or navel gazing can replace that pressure, right? And
that's very cool.
And we've made some royal mistakes, and but I guess what I'm saying is don't be afraid to screw up, because you just say sorry, you can sort of fix it, and and if you've got that bigger why, people come back anyway, and you never know, right? That's a year can go by and it still won't be perfect, but done is better than perfect. Anyway,
well, that's really good advice, Ian. Yeah. Thanks for that.
It's not all that pleasant sometimes, but it is a way to move forward quite quickly. Look, we've gone over time.
Bigger firms screw up big time, bro.
So, sorry, Freedom, say again.
Bigger companies generally screw up bigger than us small guys, and we don't actually realize that they screw up all the time. Yeah, you'll be surprised, because you've got such tight control over things at the moment, John. You'll be surprised at how quickly you can scramble, I think. Yeah, and don't think these big companies aren't doing the same thing they are, right? Like Freedom's right. But what do we know? We're selling professional services. It's a bit different, but hey, look, we're kind of out of time. We're over time, so I'm sorry about that. But John, thank you. It's such a pleasure. I always like talking to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again, Honiara, at the Mandana maybe, or the Park Hotel.
No worries. Thanks.
And thanks, Josie, who couldn't make it today, but who's like a really integral part of this. I know. Please pass on our gratitude and encouragement. And as always, if you think there's something that we can do, or anyone you want us to connect you with, we'd love to help. We love your vision.
No, thanks, Ian, and thanks to everyone for making time for us, the Sambora Finest. We're just happy to share our story. We're still a work in progress. But I'm privileged to be talking to you guys too. So I won't take up any more of your time.
Cool.
If you want, like us on Facebook, and you can follow our journey over there.
Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you.
you.
Guys.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks.